Wow, man. Only 2 hours late. Well, not quite 2 hours. 4 minutes shy of 2 hours late. Oh. Okay. Oh, a 5 vs. 5 deathmatch is still going. Man, I wanted it to switch to free for all. That's what I wanted. I need to message Walking Dead. Let me go ahead and get this over with.
Wise one, art thou silent as a child amidst the murk? Ah, I know ye are called the gods, and are mighty men at home, but now with a guilt on your hands to no feeble folk are ye come, to a folk that need you nothing. Time was when we knew ye not, yet e'en then fresh was the winter, and the summer sun was hot, and the wood meat stayed our hunger, and the water quenched our thirst, ere the good and the evil wedded and begat the best and the worst. And how if today I undo it, that work of your fashioning, if the web of the world run backward, and the high heavens lack a king? Was me. For your ancient mastery shall help you at your need, if you fill up the gulf of my longing in my empty heart of greed, and slake the flame ye have quickened, then may ye go your ways, and get ye back to your kingship in the driving on of the days, to the day of the gathered war hosts, and the time of your faithful gloom. Now not may ye gainsay it that my mouth must speak the doom, for ye wot well I am Reitmer, and that there ye lie red hand, from the slaughtering of my offspring, and the spoiling of my land. For his death at my woe hath bereft me and every highway went. Nay, Loki, not avails it, well-fashioned is the net. Come forth, my son, my war god, and show the gods their work, and thou who in thy GHTST learning Loki, if need were to lie or lurk. And there was I raging, the smithier of the snare, and high flat near towered with a brow that knew no fear, with a wrathful and pitiless heart that was born of my father's will, and agreed that the gods had fashioned the fate of the earth to fulfill. Then spake the father of men, we have wrought thee wrong indeed, and, wouldst thou amend it with wrong, thine errand must we speed. For I know of thy heart's desire, and the goal thou shalt no wise lack, nor all the works of the gold. But best were thy word drawn back, if indeed the doom of the Norns be not utterly now gone forth. Then Ragnar laughed in answer, so much is thy word of worth. And they call thee Odin for this, and stretch forth hands in vain, and pray for the gifts of the god who giveth and taketh again. It was better in times past over, when we prayed for naught at all, when no love taught us beseeching, and we had no troth to recall. Ye have changed the world, and it bindeth with the right and the wrong. Ye have made, nor may ye be gods henceforward save the rightful ransom be paid. But perchance ye are weary of kingship, and will deal no more with the earth? Then curse the world, and depart, and sit in your changeless mirth. And there shall be no more kings, and battle and murder shall fail, and the world shall laugh and long not, nor weep, nor fashion the tale. So spake Reitmer the wise. But the wrath burned through his word, and wasted his heart of wisdom. And there was wrath near the Lord, and there was rage in the right, and they raged at their father's wrath, and all these cried out together with the voice of the sea storms. Wreck! O hearken, gods of the gods. Ye shall die, and we shall be gods, and rule your men beloved with bitter heavy wrongs, and make them beasts beneath us. Save today ye do a will, and pay us the ransom of blood, and your hearts with the gold fulfill. But Odin spake in answer, and his voice was awful and cold. Give righteous doom, O Reitmer. Say what ye will with the gold. Then Reitmer laughed in his heart, and his wrath and his wisdom fled, and naught but his greed abided. And he spake from his throne and said, Now hearken the doom I shall speak. Ye stranger folk shall be free, when ye give me the flame of the waters, the gathered gold of the sea, that Andvari hid his rejoicing in when round pale is the grave. And the master of sleight shall fetch it, and the hand that never gave, and the heart that begrudgeth forever shall gather and give in room. Lo, this is the doom of the wise, and no doom shall be spoken anew. Then Odin spake, It is well. The curser shall seek for the curse, and the greedy shall cherish the evil, and the seed of the great they shall nurse. No word spake Reitmer the Great, for the eyes of his heart were turned to the edge of the outer desert, so sore for the gold he yearned. But Loki I loosed from the toils, and he goeth his way abroad. And the heart of Odin he knoweth, and where he shall seek the hoard. There is a desert of dread in the uttermost part of the world, where over a wall of mountains is a mighty water hurled, whose hidden head none knoweth, nor word made of the sea. And that force is the force of Andvari, and an elf of the dark is he. In the cloud and the desert he dwelleth amid that land alone. And his work is the storing of treasure within his house of stone. Time was when he knew of wisdom, and had many a tale to tell, of the days before the dwarf age, and of what in that world befell, and he knew of the stars and the sun, and the worlds that come and go, on the nether rim of heaven, and whence the wind doth blow, and how the sea hangs balanced betwixt the curving lands, and how all drew together for the first God's fashioning hands. But now is all gone from him, save the craft of gathering gold, and he heedeth not of the summer, nor knoweth the winter cold, nor looks to the sun nor the snowfall, nor ever dreams of the sea, nor hath heard of the making of men folk, nor of what the high gods be, but ever he gripeth and gathereth, and he toileth hour by hour, nor knoweth the noon from the midnight as he looks on his stony bower, and saith, It is short, it is narrow for all I shall gather and get. For the world is but newly fashioned, and long shall its years be yet. There Loki fareth, and seeth in a land of nothing good, far off o'er the empty desert, the reek of the falling flood, go up to the floor of heaven, and thither turn his feet, as he weaveth the unseen meshes and the snare of strong deceit. So he cometh his ways to the water, where the glittering foam bow blows, and the huge flood meets the rock wall and the green arch overthrows. There under the roof of water he trips the quivering floor, and the hush of the desert is felt amid the water's roar, and the bleak sunlight of the wavefall, and tells of the fruitless plain, and the showers that nourish nothing, and the summer come in vain. There did the great God master his toils and his tangles set, and as wide as was the water, so wide was woven the net, and as dim as the elf's remembrance did the meshes of it show. And he had no thought of his sorrow, nor spared to come and go on his errands of griping and getting till he felt himself tangled and caught. Then back to his blighted soul was his ancient wisdom brought, and he saw his fall and his ruin, as a man by the lightning's flame sees the court all flooded by foemen. And again he remembered his name, and e'en as a book well written the tale of the gods he knew, and the tale of the making of men, and much of the deeds they should do. But Loki took his man shape, and laughed aloud and cried, What fish of the ends of the earth is so strong and so feeble-eyed, that he drew with the pouch of my net on his road to the dwelling of hell? What else that hath heard the gold growing, that hath heard not the light winds tell, that the gods of the world have been dealing and have fashioned men for the earth? Where is he that hath ridden the cloud horse and measured the ocean's girth, but seen not of the building of God home nor the forging of the sword? For then is the maker of nothing, the illest and eyeless Lord. In the pouch of my net beneath, with his head on the threshold of hell. Then the elf lamented, and said, Thou know'st of my name full well, Andvari begotten of Voin, whom the dwarf can call the wise, by the worst of the gods is taken, the forge and the father of lies. said Loki. How of the elf kind? Do they love their latter life, when their will is all departed, and they lie low in the strife? Then Andvari groaned and answered, I know what thou wouldst have, the wealth mine own hands gathered, the gold that no man gave. Come forth, said Loki, and give it, and dwell in peace henceforth, or die in the toils if thou listest, if thy life be nothing worth. Full sore the elf lamented, but he came before the god, and the twain went into the rock house, and on fine gold they trod, and the walls shone bright, and brighter than the sun of the upper air. How great was that treasure of treasures, and the helm of Dreadless, there! The world that in dreams had seen it. And there was the hauberk of gold. None other is in the heavens, nor has earth of its fellow told. Then Loki bade the elf king bring all to the upper day, and he died himself with his godhead to bear the treasure away. So there in the dim grey desert before the god of guile, great heaps of the hid world's treasure the weary elf must pile. And Loki looked on laughing, but when it all was done, and the elf was hurrying homeward, his finger gleamed in the sun. Then Loki cried, Thou art guileful, thou hast not learned the tale of the wisdom that gods have gotten in their might of all avail. Hither to me, that I learn thee of many things to come. Or despite of all wilt thou journey to the dead man's deepless home? Come hither again to thy master, and give the ring to me. For meseems it is Loki's portion, and the bale of men shall it be. Then the elf drew off the gold ring and stood with empty hand, e'en where the flood fell over betwixt the water and the land, and he gazed on the great thou master, and huge and grim he grew. And his anguish swelled within him, and the word of the Norns he knew. How that gold was the seed of gold to the wise and the shapers of things, the hoarders of hidden treasure, and the unseen glory of rings. But the seed of woe to the world and the foolish wasters of men, and grief to the generations that die and spring again. Then he cried, There farest thou Loki, and might I load thee worse than with what thine ill heart beareth, then shouldst thou bear my curse. But for many curse thou bearest, entangled in my gold, amid my woe abideth another woe untold. 2 brethren and a father, 8 kings my grief shall slay. And the hearts of queens shall be broken, and their eyes shall loathe the day. Lo, how the wilderness blossoms. Lo, how the lonely lands are waving with the harvest that fell from my gathering hands. But Loki laughed in silence, and swift in Godhead went to the golden hall of Reitmer and the house of her content. But when their world of treasure was laid within our hall, 'twas as if the sun were minded to live twixt wall and wall, and always stood by and panted. Then Odin spake and said, O kings, O folk of the dwarf kind, lo, the ransom duly paid. Will ye have the son of the ocean, and reap the fruitful field, and garner up the harvest that earth therefrom shall yield? So he spake. But a little seasoned not answered Reitmer the wise, but turned his face from the treasure, and peered with eager eyes, and longed the hall and athwart it, as a man may chase about a ray of the sun of the morning that a naked sword throws out. And lo, from Loki's right hand came the flash of the fruitful ring, and at last spake Reitmer scowling, Ye wait for my yea saying, that your feet may go free on the earth, and the fear of my toils may be done, that then ye may say in your laughter, the fools of the Tag-Agon, the purblind eyes of the dwarf kind. They have gotten the garnered sheaf, and have let their masters depart with the seed of gold and of grief. O Loki, friend of Alfeather, cast down Andvari's ring, or the world shall yet turn backward and the high heavens lack a king. Then Loki drew off the elf ring and cast it down on the heap, and forth as the gold met gold did the light of its glory leap. But he spake, It rejoiceth my heart that no whit of all ye shall lack, lest the curse of the elf king cleave not, and ye escape the utter wrack. Then laughed and answered Reitmer, I shall have it while I live, and that shall be long, meseemeth, for whoever may strive with my sword, the war-wise Fafnir, and my shield that is Ragin the smith. But if indeed I should die, then let men folk deal therewith, and ride to the golden glitter through evil deeds and good. I will have my heart's desire, and do as the high gods would. Then I loose the gods from their shackles, and great they grew on the floor, and into the night they gat them. But Odin turned by the door, and we looked not, little we heeded, for we grudged his mastery. Then he spake, and his voice was waxen as the voice of the winter sea. O kings, O folk of the dwarfs, why then will ye covet and rue? I have seen your fathers' fathers and the dust wherefrom they grew. But who hath heard of my father or the land where first I sprung? Who knoweth my day of repentance, or the year when I was young? Who hath learned the names of the wise one or measured out his will? Who hath gone before to teach him, and the doom of days fulfill? Lo, I look on the curse of the gold, and wrong amended by wrong, and love by love confounded, and the strong abased by the strong. And I order it all and amend it, and the deeds that are done I see, and none other beholdeth or knoweth. And who shall be wise unto me? For myself to myself I offered, that all wisdom I might know, and fruitful I waxed of works, and good and fair did they grow. And I knew, and I wrought and foreordered. And evil sat by my side, and myself by myself hath been doomed, and I look for the fateful tide. And I deal with the generations, and the men mine hand hath made, and myself by myself shall be grieved, lest the world in this fashion fade. They went and the gold abided, but the words our father spake, I called them back full often for the golden even sake, yet little that hour I heard them, safe as wind across the lea. For the gold shone out on Reitmer and on Fafnir's face and on me. And sore I loved that treasure, so I wrapped my heart in gall, and sleeked my tongue with sweetness, and set my face in a smile, and I bade my father keep it, the more part of the gold, yet give good store to Fafnir for his goodly help and bold, and deal me a little handful for my smithying help a day. But no little I desired, though for little I might pray. And prayed I for much or for little, he answered me no more, than the shepherd answers the wood wolf who howls at the Yuletide door. But could he ever deemed it to sit on his ivory throne, and stare on the red ring's glory, and deem he was ever alone, and never a word spake Fafnir, but his eyes waxed red and grim, as he looked upon our father, and noted the ways of him. The night waned into the morning, and still about the hoard sat Reitmer clad in purple. But Fafnir took his sword, and I took my smithying hammer, and apart in the world we went. But I came aback in the even, and my heart was heavy and spent. And I longed, but fear was upon me, and I durst not go to the goal. So I lay in the house of my toil mid the things I had fashioned of old. And met God as I lay in my bed twixt waking and slumber at night, that I heard the tinkling metal and beheld the hall alight, but I slept and dreamed of the gods, and the things that never have slept, till I woke to a cry and a clashing and forth from the bed I left, and there by the heaped up alcove my brother Fafnir stood, and there at his feet lay Reitmer and reddened the treasure with blood, and e'en as I looked on his iron they glazed and whitened with death, and forth on the torch-laden hall he shed his latest breath. But I looked on Fafnir and trembled, for he wore the helm of dread, and his sword was bare in his hand, and the sword and the hand were red, with the blood of our father Reitmer, and his body was wrapped in gold, with the ruddy gleaming mail coat of whose fellow hath not been told, and it seemed as I looked upon him that he grew beneath mine eyes, and then in the mid-hall silence did his dreadful voice arise. I have slain my father Reitmer, that I alone might keep the gold of the darksome places, the candle of the deep. I am such as the gods have made me, lest the dwarf kind people the earth, or mingle their ancient wisdom with its short-lived latest birth. I shall dwell alone henceforward, and the gold in its waxing curse, I shall brood on them both together, let my life grow better or worse. And I am a king henceforward, and long shall be my life, and the gold shall grow with my longing, for I shall hide it from strife, and hoard up the ring of Andvari in the house thine hand hath built. O thou, wilt thou tarry and tarry, till I cast thy blood on the guild? Lo, I am a king forever, and alone on the gold shall I dwell, and do no deed to repent of and leave no tale to tell. More awful grew his visage as he spake the word of dread, and no more durst I behold him, but with heart a cold I fled. I fled from the glorious house my hands had made so fair, as forth a newborn baby with not a garment or gear. I fled from the heaps of gold, and my goods for the eager will, and the heart that remembereth all, and the hand that may never be still. Then unto this land I came, and that was long ago, as men folk count the years. And I taught them to reap and to sow, and a famous man I became, but that generation died, and they said that Frey had taught them, and to God my name did hide. Then I taught them the craft of metals, and the sailing of the sea, and the taming of the horse kind, and the yoke beasts husbandry, and the building up of houses. And that race of men went by, and they said that Thor had taught them. And a smithy in Karl was I. Then I gave their maidens the needle and I bade them hold the rock, and the shuttle race gave for them as they sat at the weaving stall. But by then these were waxen crones to sit dim-eyed by the door. It was Freya had come among them to teach the weaving lore. Then I taught them the tales of old, and fair songs fashioned and true, and their speech grew into music of measured time and due, and they smote the harp to my bidding, and the land grew soft and sweet, but ere the grass of their great mounds rose up above my feet, it was Bragi had made them sweet-mouthed, and I was the wandering skald. Yet green did my cunning flourish by Hatsa name I was called, and I grew the master of masters. Think thou how strange it is, that the sword in the hands of a stripling shall one day end all this. Yet amid all my wisdom did I long for my brother's part, and Fafnir's mighty kingship weighed heavy on my heart, when the kings of the earthly kingdoms would give me golden gifts, from out of their scanty treasures, do pay for my cunning shifts. And once, didst thou number the years thou wouldst think it long ago, I wandered away to the country from whence our stem did grow. There methought the fells grown greater, but ways did the meadows lie, and the house was rented ragged and open to the sky. But lo, when I came to the doorway, great silence brooded there, nor bat nor owl would haunt it, nor the wood wolves drew anear. Then I went to the pillared hallstead, and lo, huge heaps of gold, and to and fro amidst them a mighty serpent rolled. Then my heart grew chill with terror, for I thought on the wonder, our race, and I, who had lost their cunning, was a man in a deadly place, a feeble man and a swordless in the lone destroyer's fold. For I knew that the worm was Fafnir, the wallower on the gold. So I gathered my strength and fled, and hid my shame again, mid the foolish sons of menfolk. And the more my hope was vain, the more I longed for the treasure, and deliverance from the yoke. And yet passed the generation, and I dwelt with the short-lived folk. Long years, and long years after, the tale of menfolk told, how up on the glittering heath was the house and the dwelling of gold, and within that house was the serpent, and the lord of the fearful face. Then I wandered sore of the desert. For I thought of the golden place, my hands of old had built it. For I knew by many a sign that the fearful face was my brother, that the blood of the worm was mine. This was ages long ago, and yet in that desert he dwells, betwixt him and men dead leave, and no man of his semblance tells. But the tale of the great gold wallower is never the more outworn. Then came thy kin, O Sigurd, and thy father's father was born, and I fell to the dreaming of dreams. And I saw thine eyes therein, and I looked and beheld thy glory in all that thy sword should win. And I thought that thou shouldst be he, who should bring my heart its rest, that of all the gifts of the kings thy sword should give me the best. Ah, I fell to the dreaming of dreams. And oft the gold I saw, and the golden fashioned hauberk, clean wrought without a flaw, and the helm that awed the world. And I knew of Fafnir's heart, that his wisdom was greater than mine, because he had held him apart, nor spilt on the sons of menfolk or knowledge of ancient days, nor bartered one whit for their love, nor craved for the people's praise. And someday I shall have it all, his gold and his craft and his heart, and the gathered and garnered wisdom he guards in the mountains apart, and then when my hand is upon it, my hand shall be as the spring, to thaw his winter awaiting the fruitful time to bring. It shall grow into summer, and I shall be he that wrought, and my deeds shall be remembered, and my name that once was not. Yea, I shall be Frey, and Thor, and Freya, and Bragi in one, yea, the god of all that is, and no deed in the wide world done, but the deed that my heart would fashion, and the songs of the green, from the yoke, shall bear to my house in the heavens the love and belonging of folk. And there shall be no more dying, and the sea shall be as the land, and the world forever and ever shall be young beneath my hand. Then his eyelid fell, and he slumbered, and it seemed as Sigurd gazed, that the flames leapt up in the steady and about the master blazed, and his hand in the harp strings wandered and the sweetness from them poured. Then unto his feet leapt Sigurd and drew his tripling sword, and he cried, Awake, O master, for, lo, the day goes by, and this too was an ancient story, that the sons of menfolk die, and all save fame departeth. Awake,
Jorgen.
for the day grows late, and deeds by the door are passing, nor the Norns will have them wait. Then Ragen groaned and wakened, sad-eyed and heavy-browed, and weary and worn was he waxen, as a man by burden bowed, and he spake, Hast thou hearkened, Sigurd, wilt thou help a man that is old to avenge him for his father? Wilt thou win that treasure of gold and be more than the kings of the earth? Wilt thou rid the earth of a wrong and deal the woe and the sorrow my heart hath endured o long? Then Sigurd looked upon him with steadfast eyes and clear, and Regin drooped and trembled as he stood the doom to hear. But the bright child spake as aforetime, and answered the master and said, Thou shalt take thy will, and the treasure, and take the curse on thine head, of the forging of the sword that is called the wrath of Sigurd. Now again came Sigurd to Regin, and said, Thou hast taught me a task, whereof none know the ending, and a gift at thy hands I ask. Then answered Regin the master, The world must be wide indeed, if my hand may not reach across it for aught thine heart may need. Yea, wide is the world, said Sigurd, and soon spoken is thy word. But this gift thou shalt not gainsay me, for I bid thee forge me a sword. Then spake the master of masters, and his voice was sweet and soft. Look forth broad, O Sigurd, and note in the heavens aloft, how the dim white moon of the daylight hangs round as the god bronze shield. Now for thee first ran mine anvil when she walked the heavenly field, a slim and lovely lady, and the old moon lay on her arm. Lo, here is a sword I have wrought thee with many a spell and charm, and all the craft of the dwarf kind. Be glad thereof and sure. Mid many a storm of battle full well shall it endure. Then Sigurd looked on the slayer, and never a word would speak. Again for the hilts and golden, and the blade was blue and bleak, and runes of the dwarf kind cutting each side the trench were scored. But soft and sweet spake Regin, How likest thou the sword? Then Sigurd laughed and answered, The work is proved by the deed. See now if this be a traitor to fail me in my need. Then Regin trembled and shrank, so bright his eyes outshone, as he turned about to the anvil, and smote the sword thereon. But the shards fell shivering earthward, and Sigurd's heart grew wroth, as the steel flakes tinkled about him. Lo, there the right hand, trump. Lo, there the golden glitter, and the word that soon is spelled. And down amongst the ashes he cast the glittering helm, and turned his back on Regin and strode out through the door, and for many a day of springtide came back again no more. But at last he came to the stithy and again took up the word, What hast thou done, O master, in the forging of the sword? Then sweetly Regin answered, Hard task master art thou, but lo, a blade of battle that shall surely please thee now. 2 moons are clean departed since thou lookest toward the sky, and sighest the dim white circle amid the cloud flecks lie. And night and day have I labored, and the cunning of old days hath surely left my right hand if this sword thou shalt not praise. And indeed the hills gleam glorious with many a dear-bought stone, and down the fallow edges the light of battle shone. Yet Sigurd's eyes shone brighter, nor yet might Regin face those eyes of the heart of the Volsungs, but trembled in his place, as Sigurd cried, O Regin, thy kin of the days of old were an evil and treacherous folk, and they lived and murdered for gold. And now if thou wouldst betray me, of the ancient curse beware, and set thy face as the flint, the bale, and the shame to bear. For he that would win to the heavens, and be as the gods on high, must tremble not at the road, and the place where men folk die. White leaps the blade in his hand and gleams in the gear of the wall, and he smites, and the oft-smitten edges on the beaten anvil fall. But the life of the sword departed, and dull and broken it lay, on the ashes and flaked off iron. And no word did Sigurd say, but strode off through the door of the stithy and went to the hall of kings, and was merry and glad that even met all imaginings. But when the morrow was come he went to his mother and spake, the shards of the sword, that thou gleanest for my sake, in the night on the field of slaughter, in the time when my father fell, hast thou kept them through sorrow and joyance? Hast thou warded them, trusty and well? Where hast thou laid them, my mother? Then she looked upon him and said, Art thou wroth, O Sigurd my son, that such eyes are in thine head? And wilt thou be wroth with thy mother? Do I withstand thee at all? Nay, said he, not am I restful, but the days rise up like a wall, betwixt my soul and the deeds, and I strive to rend them through. And why wilt thou fear mine iron? As the sword lies baleful and blue, etwixt the lips of lovers, when they pour their troth thereon, so keen are the eyes ye have fashioned, ye folk of the days agone. For therein is the light of battle, though was it leaf asleep. Now give me the sword, my mother. that Sigmund gave thee to keep. She said, I shall give thee gladly, for fain shall I be of thy praise, when thou knowest my careful keeping of that hope of the earlier days. So she took his hand in her hand, and they went their ways, they twain, till they came to the treasure of Queen Folk, the guarded chamber of gain. They were all alone with its riches, and she turned the key in the gold, and lifted the sea-born purple, and the silken web unrolled, and lo, twixt her hands into her bosom the shards of Sigmund's sword. No rust fleck stained its edges, and the gems of the ocean's hoard were as broad in the hills and glorious as when in the Volsung's hall it shone in the eyes of the Earl folk and flashed from the shielded wall. But Sigurd smiled upon it, and he said, O Mother of Kings, well hast thou warded the war-glee for a mirror of many things, and a hope of much fulfillment. Well hast thou given to me the message of my fathers, and the word of thing to be. Trusty has been thy warning, but its hour is over now. These shards shall be knit together, and shall hear the whirlwind blow. They shall shine through the reign of Odin, as the sun come back in the world. When the heaviest bolt of the thunder amidst the storm is hurled, they shall shake the thrones of kings, and shake the walls of war, and undo the knot of treason when the world is darkening o'er. They have shone in the dusk and the night tide, they shall shine in the dawn and the day. They have gathered the storm together, they shall chase the clouds away. They have sheared red gold asunder, they shall gleam o'er the garnered gold. They have ended many a story, they shall fashion a tale to be told. They have lived in the wrath of the people, they shall live in the glory of old. They have stricken the gods in battle, for the gods shall they strike the stroke. Then she felt his hands about her as he took the fateful sword, and he kissed her soft and sweetly. But she answered never a word, so great and fair was he waxen, so glorious was his face, so young, as the deathless gods are, that long in the golden place. She stood when he was departed, as some for-travailed one comes over the dark fell ridges on the birth tide of the sun, and his gathering sleep falls from him mid the glory and the blaze. And he sees the world grow merry and looks on the mighty ways, while the ruddy streaks are melting in the day flood broad and white. Then the morn dusk he forgetteth, and the moonlit waste of night, and the hall whence he departed with its yellow candles flare. So stood the old king's daughter in that treasure chamber fair. But swift on his ways went Sigurd, and to Ragen's house he came, where the master stood in the doorway, and behind him leapt the flame. And dark he looked and little, no more his speech was sweet, no words on his lip were gathered the Volsung child to greet, till he took the sword from Sigurd and the shards of the days of old. Then he spake, will nothing serve thee save this blue steel and cold, the bane of thy father's father, the fate of all his kin, the baleful blade I fashioned, the wrath that the gods would win? Then answered the upright Sigurd, if thou thy craft wilt do, naught save these battle gleamings shall be my helper true. And what if thou begrudgest, and my battle blade be dull, yet the hand of the Norns is lifted and the cup is overfull. Repent'st thou ne'er so sorely that thy kin must lie low? How much soever thou longest the world to overthrow, and, doubting the gold and the wisdom, wouldst even know of peace, blind hate and eyeless murder, and win the world with these. Oh, and late is the time for repenting the word thy lips have said. Thou shalt have the gold and the wisdom and take its curse on thine head. I say that thy lips have spoken, and no more with thee lies, to do the deed or leave it, since thou hast shown mine eyes, the world that was aforetime, I see the world to be. And woe to the tangling thicket, or the wall that hindereth me. And short is the space I will tarry. For how the worm should die, ere the first of my strokes be stricken. Wilt thou get to thy mastery, and knit these shards together that once in a brand's talk stood? But if not, and the smith's hands fail me, a king's hand yet shall be good. And the Norns have doomed thy brother. And yet I deem this sword is the slayer of the serpent, and the scatterer of the horde. Great waxed the gloom of Ragen, and he said, thou say yes, sooth, for none may turn him backward. The sword of a fair youth shall one day end my cunning, as the gods my joy slew, when not thereof they were deeming, and another thing would do. But this sword shall slay the serpent, and do another deed, and many and one thereafter till it fail thee in thy need. But as fair and great as thou standest, yet get thee from mine house, for in me too mine hour set, and the place is perilous, with the craft that was aforetime, and shall never be again, when the hands that have taught thee cunning have failed from the world of men. Thou art wroth. but thy wrath must slumber till fate its blossom there. Not thus were the eyes of Odin when I held him in the snare. Depart, lest the end overtake us ere thy work and mine be done, but come again in the night tide and the slumber of the sun, when the sharded moon of April hangs round in the undark May. Hither and thither while did the heart of Sigurd sway. For he feared no craft of the dwarf kind, nor heeded the ways of fate, but his hand brought in as his heart would, and now was he weary, with hate, of the hatred and scorn of the gods, and the greed of gold and of gain, and the weaponless hands of the stripling of the wrath and the rending, were fain. But there stood Regin the master, and his eyes were on Sigurd's eyes, though not belike they beheld him, and his brow was sad and wise. And the greed died out of his visage, and he stood like an image of old. So the Norns drew Sigurd away, and the tide was an even of gold, and sweet in the April even were the fowl kind singing their best. And the light of life smote Sigurd, and the joy that knows no rest, and the fond unnamed desire, and the hope of hidden things. And he wended fair and lovely to the house of the feasting kings. But now when the moon was at full and the undark May begun, when Sigurd unto Regin mid the slumber of the sun, and amidst the fire hall's pavement the king of the dwarf kind stood, like an image of deeds departed and days that once were good. And he seemed but faint and weary, and his eyes were dim and dazed, as they met the glory of Sigurd where the fitful candles blazed. Then he spake, Hail, son of the Volsungs, the cornerstone is laid, I have toiled and thou hast desired, and, lo, the faithful blaze. Then Sigurd saw lying on the ashes slight and pale, like the sun and the lightning mingled mid the even's cloudy veil, for ruddy and great were the hills, and the edges fine and wen, and all adown to the blood point of very flame therein, that swallowed the ruins of wisdom or with its sides were scored. No sound did Sigurd utter as he stooped down for his sword, but it seemed as his lips were moving with speech of strong desire. White leapt the blade o'er his head, and he stood in the ring of its fire, as hither and thither it played, till it fell on the anvil string, and he cried aloud in his glory, and held out the sword full length, as one who would show it the world. For the edges would all know it, and the anvil was left to the pavement with the dreadful hint of it. But Regin cried to his heartstrings, before the days of men, I smithied the wrath of Sigurd, and now is it smithied again, and my hand alone hath done it, and my heart alone hath dared, to with that man to the mountain, and behold his glory bared. Ah, if the son of Sigmund might wot of the thing I would, then how were the ages bettered, and the world all waxen good? Then how were the past forgotten, and the weary days of yore, and the hope of men that deep in the ways that never bore? How should this one live through the winter know of all increase? How should that one spring to the sunlight and bear the blossom of peace? No more should the long-lived wisdom o'er the waste of the wilderness stray, nor the clear-eyed hero hasten to the deepless ending of day. And what if the heart of the Volsungs for this deed of deeds were born? How then were their life days evil and the end of their lives forlorn? There stood Sigurd the Volsung, and heard how the heartstrings rang, but of other things they told him than the hope that the master sang. And his world lay far away from the dwarf king's eyeless realm, and the road that leadeth nowhere, and the ship without a helm, but he spake, How oft shall I say it, that I shall work thy will? If my father hath made me mighty, thine heart shall I fulfill, with the wisdom and gold thou wildest, before I wend on my ways. For now hast thou failed me not, and the sword is the wonder of days. No word for a well spake Regin. But he hung his head adown, as a man that pondereth sorely, and his voice once more was grown, as the voice of the smithian master as he spake, This wrath of thine hath fled the hard and the heavy. It shall shear the soft and the fine, come forth to the night and prove it. So they twain went forth abroad, and the moon lay white on the river and mid the sleepless ford, and down to its close they wended, and the stream was swift and full. Then Regin cast against it a lock of fine spun wool, and it rolled about on the eddy till it met the edges bared, and as clean as a careless wad of elaborate fleece was sheared. Then Regin spake, It is good, what the smithian carle hath wrought, now the work of the king beginneth, and the end that my soul hath sought. Thou shalt toil and I shall desire, and the deed shall be surely done, for thy wrath is alive and awake and the story of Bale is begun. Therewith was the wrath of Sigurd laid soft in a golden sheath, and the peace strings knit around it. For that blade was fain of death. and 'tis ill to show such edges to the broad blue light of day, or to let the hall glare like them, if ye list not play the play of Gripper's foretelling. Now Sigurd backeth grateful on the first of the morn, and he rideth faring softly through the acres of the corn. The raft to his side is girded, but it are the edges blue, as he wendeth his ways to the mountains, and readeth the horse mead through. His wide grey eyes are happy, and his voice is sweet and soft, as amid the mead lark singing he casteth song aloft. Lo, lo, the horse and the rider. So once maybe it was, when over the earth unpeopled the youngest god would pass. But never again meseems shall such a sight betide, till over world unwrongful newborn shall boulder ride. So he comes to that ness of the mountains, and Gripper's garden steep, that bravely grateful breasted, and adown by the door doth he leap, and his war gear rattleth upon him. There is none to ask or forbid, as he wendeth the house clear lighted, where no mote of the dust is hid, though the sunlight hath not entered, the walls are clear and bright, for they cast back each to other the golden Sigurd's light. Through the echoing waves of the house bridle he wended along, and the mountain wind is with him, and the hovering eagle's song. But no sound of the children of men may the ears of the Volsung hear, and no sign of their ways in the world, or their will, or their hope, or their fear. So he comes to the hall of Gripper, and gleaming green is it built, as the house of under ocean where the wealth of the greedy is spilled. Gleaming and green as the sea, and rich is its rock-strewn floor, and fresh as the autumn morning when the burning of summer is o'er. There he looks and beholdeth the high seat, and he sees it strangely wrought of the tooth of the sea beast fashioned ere the dwarf concave not. And he looks, and there on his Gripper, the king exceeding old, with the sword of his fathers girded, and his raiment wrought of gold. With the ivory rod in his right hand, with his left on the crystal, laid, that is round as the world of men folk, and after its image made, and clear as it raw to the iron that may read therein a fate, though little indeed be its sea, and its earth not wondrous great. There Sigurd stands in the hall, on the shaped raft doth he lean. All his golden rod is mirrored in his gleaming floor and green. But the smile in his face upperset his lips on the ancient king, and their bright eyes meet and their laughter, and sweet is the welcoming, and Gripper saith, Hail Sigurd! For my bidding hast thou done, and here in the mountain dwelling are 2 kings of men alone. But Sigurd spake, Hail Father! I am girt with the faithful sword, and my face is set to the highway, and I come for thy latest word. Said Gripper, what wouldst thou hearken ere we sit and drink the wine? Thy word and the Norns, said Sigurd, but never a word of mine. What sights wouldst thou see, said Gripper, ere mine hand shall take thine hand? As the gods would I see, said Sigurd, though dead might of the land. What hope wouldst thou hope, O Sigurd, ere we kiss, we twain, and depart? Thy hope and the gods, said Sigurd, though the grief lie hard on my heart. Not answered the ancient wise one, and not a whit hath he stirred, since the clash of Sigurd's raiment in his mountain hall he heard. But the ball that imaged the earth was set in his hand grown old. And belike it was to his vision, as the wide world's ocean rolled, and the forests waved with the wind, and the corn was gay with the lark, and the gold in its nether places grew up in the dusk and the dark, and its children built and departed, and its kingfolk conquered and went. As over the crystal image's all-wise face was bent, for all his desire was dead, and he lived as a god shall live, whom the prayers of the world hath forgotten, and to whom no hand may give. But there stood the mighty Volsung, and leaned on the hidden raft. As the earliest sun's uprising o'er the sea plain draws a path, whereby men sail to the eastward and the dawn of another day, so the image of King Sigurd on the gleaming pavement lay. Then great in the hall fair pillared the voice of Gripper rose, and it ran through the glimmering house ways, and forth to the sunny close. There made the birds rejoicing went the voice of an o'erwise king, like a wind of mid-most winter come back to talk with spring. But the voice cried, Sigurd, Sigurd! O great, O early born! O hope of the kings first fashioned! O blossom of the morn! Short day in long remembrance, fair summer of the north! One day shall world wonder how first thou wentest forth. Arise, O Sigurd, Sigurd! In the night arise and go, thou shalt smite when the day dawn glimmers through the folds of Godhome's bow. There the child in the noontide smitteth. The young king rendeth apart the old girl by the gall encompassed, the heart made wide by the heart. By the red rings, O Sigurd, bind up to cast abroad, that the earth may laugh before thee rejoiced by the waters hoard. Ride on, O Sigurd, Sigurd, for God's word goes forth on the wind, and he speaketh not twice over. Nor shall they loose that bind, but the day and the day shall loosen, and the day shall awaken, arise, and the day shall rejoice with the dawning, and the wise heart learn of the wise. O fair, O fearless, Almighty, how green are the gorse of kings, how soft are the ways before thee to the heart of their warfarings. How green are the gorse of kingfolk, how fair is the lily and rose, in the house of the cloudy people, neath the towers of kings and foes. Smite now in the noontide, ride on through the hosts of men, lest the dear remembrance perish, and today come not again. Is it day? But the house is darkling, but the hand will gather in, hold, and the lips have kissed the cloud wreath, and a cloud the arms enfold. In the dusk hath the sower arisen, in the dark hath he cast the seed, and the ear is the sorrow of Odin and the wrong, and the nameless need. Ah, the hand hath gathered and garnered, and empty is the hand, though the day be full and fruitful mid the drift of the cloudy land. Look on the drift of the clouds, how the day and the even doth run, as the long forgotten dawning that was a while ago. Dawn, almighty of men. And why wilt thou never awake, when the holy field of the gods both cries out for thy love and night, say, dawn, now. But the house is silent, and dark is the purple blood, on the breast of the queen fair fashioned. And it were set up as a flood, round the posts of the door beloved. And a deed there lead therein, the last of the deeds of Sigurd. The worst of the cloudy kin, this slayer slain by the slain within the door and without. O dawn as the eve of the birthday. O dark world cumbered with doubt. Shall it never be day any more, nor the sun's uprising and growth? Shall the kings of earth lie sleeping in the warded wander and slow, through the last of the winter twilight? Is the word of the wise ones, said, till the fivefold winter be ended and the trumpet waking the dead? Short day and long remembrance. Great glory for the earth. O deeds of the day triumphant. A word of Sigurd's worth. It is done, and who shall undo it of all who were ever alive? May the gods or the high gods masters gains the tale of the righteous strive, and the deeds to follow after, and all their deeds increase, till the uttermost field is fountain, and Baldur saith in peace. Cry out, a waste, before him. A rocks of the wilderness, cry! For to morn shalt thou see the glory, and the men not made to die. Cry out, O upper heavens! O clouds beneath the lift! For the golden king shall be riding high-headed midst the drift, the mountain wastes and the fire. There waiteth the heart of the wise, till the earthly toil is accomplished, and again shall the fire arise. And none shall be nigh in the ending, and none by his heart shall be laid, save the world that he cherished and quickened, and the day that he wakened and made. So died the voice of Gripper from amidst the sunny close, and the sound of hastening eagles from the mountains to those. But the hall was silent a little, for still stood Sigmund's son, and he heard the words and remembered, and knew them one by one. Then he turned on the ancient Gripper with eyes that knew no guile, and smiled on the wise of kingfolk as the first of men might smile, on the God that hath fashioned him happy. And he spake, Hast thou spoken and known, how there standeth the child before thee and his stripling scarcely grown? Or hast thou told of the balsams, and the gathered heart of these, and their still unquenched desire for garnering fame's increase? E'en so do I hearken thy words, for I wot how they deem it long, till a man from their seat be arisen to deal with the cumber and wrong. Bid me therefore to sit by thy side, for behold I went on my way, and the gates swing to behind me, and each day of mine is a day, with deeds in the eve and the morning, nor deeds shall the noontide lack. To the right and the left none calleth, and no voice cried the back. Come, kin of the gods, said Gripper, come up and sit by my side, that we twain may be glad as the fearless, and they that have nothing to hide. I have wrought out my will and divided, and I sit unwreathed and alone, I look upon men and I help not. To me are the deeds long done, as those of today and tomorrow, for these and for those am I glad. but the gods and men are the framers, and the days of my life I have had. Then Sigurd came unto Gripper, and he kissed the wise one's face, and they sat in the high seat together, the child and the elder of days. And they drank of the wine of kingfolk, and were joyful each of each, and spake for a while of matters that are meet for kingfolk's speech. The deeds of men that happen and kin of the kings of the earth. And Gripper told of the outlands, and the mid-world's billowy girth, and tales of the upper heaven were mingled with his talk, and the halls where the sea queens kindred o'er the gem-strewn pavement walk, and the innermost parts of the earth, where they lie, the green and the blue, and the red and the glittering gemstones that of old the dwarf kind knew. Long Sigurd sat and marvelled at the mouth that might not lie, and the eyes no god had blinded, and the lone heart raised on high. Then he rose from the gleaming high seat, and the rings of battle rang, and the sheep's breath was hearkening into song of words sang. But Sigurd spake unto Gripper, long and lovely are thy days, and thy years fulfilled of wisdom, and thy feet on the unhid ways, and the guileless heart of the great that knoweth not anger nor pain. So once hath the man been fashioned and shall not be again. But for me hath been full the war horse, the grey steed swift as the cloud, and for me were the edges smithied, and the wrath cries out aloud. And a voice hath called from the darkness, and I ride for the glittering heat, to smite on the door of destruction, and waken the warder of death. So they kissed, the wise and the wise, and the child from the elder, turned. And again in the glimmering houseways the golden Sigurd burned. He stood outside in the sunlight, and tarred never a deal, but leapt on the cloudy greyful with the clank of gold and steel. And he rode through the sinking day to the walls of the kingly stead, and came to Ragen's dwelling when the wind was fallen dead, and the great sun just departing. Then blood red grew the west, and the fowl flew home from the sea mead, and all things sank to rest. Sigurd reached to the glittering heath. Again on the morrow morning doth Sigurd the Volsung ride, and Ragen, the master of masters, is preparing by his side, and they leave the dwelling of kings and ride the summer land, until at the eve of the day the hills are on either hand. Then they wend up higher and higher, and over the heath they fare, till the moon shines broad on the midnight, and they sleep neath the heavens bare. And they waken and look behind them, and lo, the dawning of day, and the little land of the Helper and its valleys far away. But the mountains rise before them, a wall exceeding great. Then spake the master of masters, we have come to the Gordandla gate. There is youth and rest behind thee and many a thing to do. There is many a fond desire, and each day born anew. And the land of the Volsungs to conquer, and many a people's praise. And for me there is rest it may be, and the peaceful end of days. We have come to the Gordandla gate. To the hall door now shall we win. Shall we go to look on the high seat and see what sitteth therein? Yea, and what else? Said Sigurd, was thy tale but mockery, and have I been drifted hither on a wind of empty lies? It was so, said Ragen, and more might I have told, had I heart and space to remember the deeds of the days of old. And he hung down his head as he spaketh, and was silent a little space. And when it was lifted again there was fear in the dwarf king's face. And he said, Thou knowest my God, and wise-hearted art thou grown. It were well if thine eyes were blinder, and we each were faring alone, and I with my eld and my wisdom, and thou with thy youth and thy might. Yet whiles I dream I have wrought thee, a beam of the morning bright, a fatherless motherless glory, to work out my desire. Then high my hope there set, and my heart is all afire, for the world I behold from afar, and the day that yet shall be. Then I wake and all things I remember, and the youth of the kings I see, the child of the wood abider, the seed of a conquered king, the sword that the gods have fashioned, the fate that men shall sing. All might the world run backward to the days of the dwarfs of old, when I hewed out the pillars of crystal, and smoothed the walls of gold. Not answered the son of Sigmund. Nay, he heard him not at all, save as though the wind were speaking in the bites of the mountain hall. But he leapt back of Greyfall, and the glorious sun rose up, and the heavens glowed above him like the bowl of Baldur's cup, and a golden man was he waxen. As the heart of the sun he seemed, while over the feet of the mountains like blood the new light streamed. Then Sigurd cried to Greyfall, and swift for the pass he rode, and Ragen followed after as a man bowed down by a load. Day long they fared through the mountains, and that highway's fashioner forsooth was a fearful craftsman, and his hands the waters were, and the heaped up ice was his mattock, and the fire blast was his man, and never would he heed though his walls were waste and wen, and the guest halls of that wayside great heaps of the ashes spend. But each is a man alone, through the sun bright day they wend, and they rode till the moon rose upward, and the stars were small and fair. Then they slept on the lone slate ashes beneath the heavens bare. And the cold dawn came and they wakened, and the king of the dwarf kind seemed as a thing of that land fashion. But Sigurd glowed and gleamed amid the shadowless twilight by Greyfell's cloudy flank, as a little space they abided while beneath a star world shrank. On the backward boat looked raging and heard how Sigurd drew the girth of Greyfell's saddle, and the voice of his sword he knew, and he feared to look on the balsam, as thus he fell to speak. I have seen the dwarf folk mighty, I have seen the god folk weak. And now, though our might be diminished, yet have we gifts to give. When men desire and conquer, most sweet is their life to live. When men are young and lovely there is many a thing to do. And sweet is their fond desire and the dawn that springs anew. This gift, said the son of Sigmund, the Norns shall give me yet, and no blossom slain by the sunshine while the leaves with dew are wet. Then Regin turned and beheld him, thou shalt deem it hard and strange, when the hand hath encompassed it all, and yet thy life must change. Ah, long were the lives of men folk, if betwixt the gods and them, were mighty waters watching mid the earth's and the heaven's hem. Is there any man so mighty he would cast this gift away, the heart's desire accomplished, and let so long the day, that the dawn should be forgotten ere the even was begun? Then Sigurd laughed in answer, fare forth, O glorious sun. Bright and from bright beginning, and the midway good to tell, and death, and deeds accomplished, and all remembered well? Shall the day go past and leave us, and we be left with night, to tread the endless circle, and strive in vain to smite? But thou, wilt thou still look backward? Thou say'st I know thy thought, thou hast whetted the sword for the slain, it shall turn aside for naught. Fear not. With the gold and the wisdom thou shalt deem thee God alone, and mayst do and undo at pleasure, nor be bound by right nor wrong. And then, if no God I be waxen, I shall be the weak with the strong. And his war gear clanged and tinkled as he leapt to the saddle stead, and the sun rose up at their backs and the grey world changed to red, and away to the west went Sigurd by the glory wreathed about, but little and black was Regin as a fire that deemed out. Day long they rode the mountains by the crags exceeding old, and the ash that the first of the dwarf kind found dull and quenched, and cold. Then the moon in mid-sky swam, and the stars were fair and pale, and beneath the naked heaven they slept in an ash-grey dale. And again at the dawn dusk's ending they stood upon their feet, and Sigurd donned his war gear nor his eyes would Regin meet. A clear streak widened in heaven low down above the earth, and above it lay the cloud flecks, and the sun, a night's birth, unseen, their hosts was staining with the very hue of blood, and ruddy by Greyfell's shoulder the son of Sigmund stood. Then spake the master of masters, what is thy hope this morn, that thou diedest thee, O Sigurd, to ride this world forlorn? What needeth hope, said Sigurd, when the heart of the Volsungs turns to the light of the glittering heath, and the house where the waster burns? I shall slay the foe of the gods, as thou badst me a while ago, and then with the gold and its wisdom shalt thou be left alone. O child, said the king of the dwarf kind, when the day at last comes round, for the dread in the dusk of the gods, and the kin of the wolf is unbound, when thy sword shall heat the fire, and the wildfire beat at thy shield, shalt thou praise the wages of hope and the gods that pitch the field? O foe of the gods, said Sigurd, wouldst thou hide the evil thing, and the curse that is greater than thou, lest death and thy laboring, lest the night should come upon thee amidst thy toil for naught? It is me that thou fearest, if indeed I know thy thought. Yea, me, who would utterly light the face of all good and ill, if not with the fruitful being that the summer shall fulfill, then at least with the world ablazing, and the glare of the grinded sword. And he sprang aloft to the saddle as he spake the latest word, and the wrath sang loud in the shed as it ne'er had sung before, and the cloudy flecks were scattered like flames on the heaven's floor, and all was kindled at once. And that trench of the mountains grey was filled with the living light as the low sun lit the way, but Regin turned from the glory with blinded eyes and dazed, and lo, on the cloudy war steed how another light there blazed. and a great voice came from amidst it, O Raging, in good sooth, I have hearkened not nor heeded the words of thy fear in thy ruth. Thou hast told thy tale and thy longing, and thereto I hearkened. Well, let it lead thee up to heaven, let it lead thee down to hell. The deed shall be done tomorrow. Thou shalt have that measureless gold, and devour the garnered wisdom that blessed thy realm of old, that hath lain unspent and begrudged in the very heart of hate. With the blood and the might of thy brother thy hunger shalt thou sate. And this deed shall be mine and thine. But take heed for what fall within. Let each do after his kind. I shall do the deeds of men. I shall harvest the field of their sowing, in the bed of their strewing shall sleep. To them shall I give my life days, to the gods my glory to keep. But thou with the wealth and the wisdom that the best of the gods might praise, if thou shalt indeed excel them and become the hope of the days, then me in turn hast thou conquered, and I shall be in turn thy fashioned brand of the battle through good and evil to burn, or the flame that sleeps in thy stithy for the gathered winds to blow, when thou listest to do and undo in thine uttermost cunning to show. But indeed I wot full surely that thou shalt follow thy kind, and for all that cometh after, the norns shall loosen bind. Then his bridle reins rang sweetly, and the warding walls of death, and Ragin drew up to him, and the wrath sang loud in the sheath, and forth from that trench in the mountains by the westward way they ride. And little and black goes Ragin by the golden Volsung's side. But no more his head is drooping, for he seeth the elf king's gold. The garnered might and the wisdom he now his eyes behold. So up and up they journeyed, and ever as they went, about the cold slaked forges, o'er many a close-swept bend, betwixt the walls of blackness, by shores of the fishless nose, and the fathomless desert waters, did Ragin cast his fears, and wrap him in desire. And all alone he seemed, as a god to his airship wending, and forgotten and undreamed, was all the tale of Sigurd, and the folk he had toiled among, and the Volsungs, Odin's children, and the men folk fair and young. So on they rode to the westward, and huge were the mountains grown, and the floor of heaven was mingled with the tossing world of stone, and they rode till the moon was forgotten and the sun was waxen low, and they tarried not, though he perished, and the world grew dark below. Then they rode a mighty desert, a glimmering place and wide, and into a narrow pass high walled on either side, by the blackness of the mountains, and barred aback and in face, by the empty night of the shadow. A windless silent place, but the white moon shone overhead mid the small sharp stars and pale, and each as a man alone they rode on the highway of Bale. So ever they wended upward, and the midnight hour was o'er, and the stars grew pale and paler, and failed from the heaven's floor, and the moon was a long while dead, but where was the promise of day? No change came over the darkness, no streak of the dawning gray. No sound of the wind uprising adown the night there ran, it was blind as a gaping gulf ere the first of the worlds began. Then athwart and athwart rode Sigurd and sought the walls of the pass, but found no wall before him. And the road rang hard as brass, beneath the hoofs of Greyfall, as up and up he trod. Was it the daylight of hell, or the night of the doorway of God? But lo, at the last a glimmer, and a light from the west there came, and another, like points of far-off flame. And they grew and brightened and gathered. And whilst together they ran, like the moon wake over the waters. And whilst they were scant and wan, some greater and some lesser, like the boats of fishers laid, about the sea of midnight. And a dusky dawn they made, a faint and glimmering twilight, so Sigurd strains his eyes, and he sees how a land deserted all round about him lies, more changeless than mid-ocean, as fruitless as its floor. Then the heart leaps up within him, for he knows that his journey is o'er. And there he tread with bridle on the first of the glittering heath, and the wrath is waxen merry and sings in the golden sheath, as he leaps adown from Greyfall, and stands upon his feet, and wends his way through the twilight the foe of the gods to meet. Sigurd's laid fast near the serpent. Not Sigurd seeketh Ragin, and not he heeds of him, as in watchful might and glory he strides the desert dim, and behind him passeth Greyfall. But he deems the time o long, till he meet the great old warden, the overlord of wrong. So he wendeth midst the silence through the measureless desert place, and beholds the countless glitter with wise and steadfast face, till him seems in a little season that the flames grown somewhat wan, and a great thing glimmers before him, and becomes a mighty man. one-eyed and ancient-seeming, in cloud grey raiment clad. A friendly man and glorious, and a visage smiling glad, then content in Sigurd grow with because of his majesty, and he heareth him speak in the desert as the wind of the winter sea. Hail Sigurd! Give me thy greeting ere thy ways alone thou wend. Said Sigurd, Hail! I greet thee, my friend and my father's friend. Now whither away, said the elder, with the steed and the ancient sword? To the greedy house, said Sigurd, and the king of the heavy horde. Wilt thou smite, O Sigurd, Sigurd? Said the ancient mighty one. Yea, I shall smite, said the Volsung, save the gods have slain the sun. What wise wilt thou smite, said the elder, lest the dark devour thy day? Thou hast praised the sword, said the child, and the sword shall find a way. Be learned of me, said the wise one, for I was the first of thy folk. Said the child, I shall do thy bidding, and for thee shall I strike the stroke. Saith the wise one, thus shalt thou do when thou wentest hence alone, thou shalt find a path in the desert, and a road in the world of stone. It is smooth and deep and hollow, but the rain hath driven it not, and the wild wind hath not worn it, for it is but Fafnir's lot, whereby he wends to the water and the fathomless pool of old, when his heart in the dawn is wearied, and he loathes the ancient gold. There think of the great and the fathers, and bear the wedded wrath, and dig a pit in the highway, and a grave in the serpent's path. Lie thou therein, O Sigurd, and thine oath from the glue and hide, and be as the dead for a season, and the living lighted light. And so shall thine heart avail thee, and thy mighty faithful hand, and the light that lay in the brand's deck, the well-beloved brand. Said the child, I shall do thy bidding, and for thee shall I strike the stroke. For I love thee, friend of my fathers, wise heart of the holy folk. So spake the son of Sigmund, and beheld no man anear, and again waking not the midnight, and the twinkling flame shone clear in the hush of the glittering heath. And alone went Sigmund's son, till he came to the road of Fafnir, and the highway worn by one, by the drift of the rain unfurrowed, the windy years unrent, and forth from the dark it came, and into the dark it went. Great then was the heart of Sigurd, for there in the midmost he stayed, and thought of the ancient fathers, and bare the bright blue blade, that shone as a fleck of the daylight, and the night was all around. Fair then was the son of Sigmund as he told, and elaborate the ground. Great, mighty he was in his working, and the glittering heath he claimed, and the sword shone blue before him as he dug the pit and the grave. There he hid his hope from the night tide, and lay like one of the dead, and was and where he bided. And the heavens hung over his head. Now the night wanes over Sigurd, and the ruddy rings he sees, and his war gears fair adornment, and the god folk's images. But a voice in the desert Erisek, a sound in the waste has birth, a changing tinkle and clatter, as of gold dragged over the earth. O'er Sigurd widens the daylight, and the sound is drawing close, and speedier than the trample of speedy feet it goes. But ever deemeth Sigurd that the sun brings back the day, for the grave grows lighter and lighter, and heaven overhead is grey. But now, how the rattling waxeth till he may not heed nor hark. And the day in the heavens are hidden, and o'er Sigurd rolls the dark, as the flood of a pitchy river, and heavy thick is the air, with the venom of hate long-hoarded, and lies once fashioned fair. Then a wag face comes from the darkness, and is broad and man-like, wise, and the lips are with laughter and bleared are the blinded eyes. And it wandereth hither and thither, and circuit through the grave, and departed, leaving nothing, save the dark, rolled wave on wave, o'er the golden head of Sigurd and the edges of the sword, and the war rings heavy on Sigurd, and the weary curse of the horde. Him seemed the grave grew straighter, and his hope of life grew chill, and his heart by the worm was enfolded, and the bonds of the ancient ill. Then was Sigurd stirred by his glory, and he strove with the swaddling of death. He turned in the pit on the highway, and the grave of the glittering heath. He laughed and smote with laughter and thrust up over his head, and smote the venom asunder, and clave the heart of dread. Then he leapt from the pit and the grave, and the rushing river of blood, and fulfilled with the joy of the war god on the face of earth he stood, with red sword high uplifted, with wrathful glittering eyes. And he laughed at the heavens above him, for he saw the sun arise, and Sigurd gleamed on the desert, and shone in the newborn light, and the wind in his ramen wavered, and all the world was bright. But there was the ancient Fafnir, and the face of terror lay on the huddled folds of the serpent that were black and ashen gray in the desert lit by the sun. And those twain looked each on each, and forth from the face of terror went a sound of dreadful speech. Child, child, who art thou that hast smitten? Bright child, of whence is thy birth? I am called the wild thing glorious, and alone I win on the earth. Fierce child, and who is thy father? Thou hast cleft the heart of the foe. Am I like to the sons of men folk, that my father I should know? Wert thou born of a nameless wonder? Shall the light to my death day cling?
Smash
Sigurd the
loud
Volsung,
dog.
and the son of Sigmund the king. O bitter father of Sigurd, thou hast cleft mine heart at twain. I rose, and I wondered and winded, and I smote not in vain. What master hath taught thee of murder? Thou hast wasted Fafnir's day. I, Sigurd, knew and desired, and the bright sword learned the way. Thee shall the rattling bolt and the red rings bring to the bane. Yet mine hand shall cast them abroad, and the earth shall gather again.
Smash loud
I see thee
dog.
great in thine anger, and the Norns thou heedest not. O Fafnir, speak of the Norns and the wisdom unforget. Let the death doomed flee from the ocean, him the wind and the weather shall drown. O Fafnir, tell of the Norns ere thy life thou layest down. O manifold is your kindred, and who shall tell them all? There are they that rule o'er menfolk and the stars that rise and fall. I knew of the folk of the dwarves, and I knew their Norns of old. And I fought, and I fell in the morning, and I died far from the gold. I have seen the gods of heaven, and their Norns with all I know. They leaven with cold their helping, they eat and defend the blood. They curse and they mean no thunder, they bless and they shall not lend. They have fashioned the good and the evil.
Smash
They
loud
by the
dog.
change and the end.
Please.
O Fafnir, what of the isle, and what hast thou known of its name, where the gods shall mingle edges with Surt and the sons of the flame? O child, O strong compeller, unshapen is it height. There the fallow blades shall be shaken, and the dark and the day shall smite, when the bridge of the gods is broken, and their white steeds swim the sea, and the uttermost field is stricken, last strife of the enemy. What then shall endure, O Fafnir, the tale of the battle to tell? I am blind, O strong compeller, in the bonds of death and hell. But thee shall the rattling gold and the red rings bring unto bane. Yet the rings mine and shall scatter, and the earth shall gather again. Woe, woe! In the days past over I bore the helm of dread, I reared the face of terror, and avoided hated the dead, I overcame and was mighty. I was wise and cherished my heart, in the waste where no man wandered, and the high house builded apart, till I met thine hand, O Sigurd, and thy might ordained from of old. And I fought and fell in the morning, and I died far off from the gold. Then Sigurd leaned on his sword, and a dreadful voice went by, like the wail of a god departing in the war god's misery. And strong words of ancient wisdom went by on the desert wind, the words that mar and fashion, the words that loose and bind. And sounds of a strange lamenting, and such strange things bewailed, that words to tell their meaning the tongue of man hath failed. Then all sank into silence, and the son of Sigmund stood on the torn and furrowed desert body full of Fafnir's blood, and the serpent lay before him, dead, chilly, dull, and grey. And over the glittering heath fair shone the sun and the day, and the light wind followed the sun and breathed o'er the fateful place, as fresh as it furrows the sea plain or bows the acre's face. Sigurd's lathe raging the master of masters on the glittering heath. There standeth Sigurd the Volsung, and leaneth on his sword, and beside him now is grateful and looks on his golden lord, and the world is awake and living. And whither now shall they wend, who have come to the glittering heath, and wrought that deed to its end? For hither comes raging the master from the skirts of the field of death, and he shatteth his eyes from the sunlight as a foot he goeth, and saith, Ah, let me live for a while. For a while and all shall be well, when past is the house of murder and I grieve from the prison of hell. Afoot he went o'er the desert, and he came unto Sigurd and stared at the golden gear of the man, and the wrath yet bloody and bared, and the light locks raised by the wind, and the eyes beginning to smile, and the lovely lips of the Volsung, and the brow that knew no guile. And he murmured under his breath while his eyes grew white with wrath, "Oh, who art thou, and wherefore, and why art thou in the path?" Then he turned to the ash-gray serpent, and grovelled low on the ground, and he drank of that pool of the blood by the stones of the wild, or drowned, and long he lapped as a dog. But when he arose again, lo, a flock of the mountain eagles that drew to the feastful plain. And he turned and looked on Sigurd, as bright in the sun he stood, a stripling fair and slender, and wiped the wrath of the blood. But Rajan cried, "O dwarf kind, O many shifting folk, O shapes of might and wonder, am I too freed from the yoke that binds my soul to my body, a withered thing forlorn, while the short-lived fools of man-folk so fair and oft are born? Now swift in the air shall I be, and young in the concourse of kings, if my heart shall come to desire the gain of earthly things." And he looked and saw how Sigurd was shooting the flame of war, and the eagles screamed in the wind, but their voice came faint from afar. Then he scowled, and crouched and darkened, and came to Sigurd and spake, "O child, thou hast slain my brother, and the wrath is alive and awake." "Thou sayest sooth," said Sigurd, "thy deed and mine is done, but now our ways shall sunder. For here, meseemeth, the son hath but little of deeds to do, and no love to win it back." Then Rajan crouched before him, and he spake, "Fair unto the rack, fair unto the murder of men, and the deeds of thy kindred of old. And surely of these of them shall a tale be speedily told. Thou hast slain thy master's brother, and what wouldst thou say thereto? Were the judges met for the judging and the doom ring hallowed?" Then Sigurd spake as aforetime, "Thy deed and mine it was, and now our ways shall sunder, and into the world will I pass." But Rajan darkened before him, and exceeding grim was he grown, and he spake, "Thou hast slain my brother, and wherewith wilt thou atone?" "Stand up, O master," said Sigurd, "O singer of ancient days, and take the wealth I have won thee, ere we went on the sundering ways. I have toiled and thou hast desired, and the treasure is surely near, and thou hast wisdom to find it, and I have slain thy fear." But Rajan crouched and darkened. "Thou hast slain my brother," he said. "Take thou the gold," quoth Sigurd, "for the ransom of my head." Then Rajan crouched and darkened, and over the earth he hung. And he said, "Thou hast slain my brother, and the gods are yet but young." Bright Sigurd towered above him, and the wrath cried out in the sheath, and Rajan writhed against it as the adder turns on death. And he spake, "Thou hast slain my brother, and today shalt thou be my thrall, yea, king shall be my cook-boy, and this heath my cooking hoe." Then he crept to the ash-grey coils where the life of his brother had lain. And he drew a glaive from his side and smote the smitten in flame, and tore the heart from Fafnir, while the eagles cried overhead. And sharp and shrill was their voice over the entrails of the dead. Then Rajan spake to Sigurd, "Of the slaying wilt thou be free? Then gather thou fire together and roast the heart for me, that I may eat it and live, and be thy master and more. For therein was might and wisdom, and the grudged and hoarded lore, or else, depart on thy ways afraid from the glittering heath." Then he fell backward and slept, nor set his sword in the sheath, but his hand was red on the hilts and blue were the edges bared. Ash-grey was his visage waxen, and with open eyes he stared on the height of heaven above him, and a fearful thing he seemed, as his soul went wide in the world, and of rule and kingship he dreamed. But Sigurd took the heart, and wood on the waste he found, the wood that grew and died, as it crept on the niggard ground, and grew and died again, and lay like whitened bones. And the urns cried over his head, as he builded his hearth of stones, and kindled the fire for cooking, and sat and sang o'er the roast, the song of his fathers of old, and the wolflings gathering host. So there on the glittering heath rose up the little flame, and the dry sticks crackled amidst it, and alow the eagles came, and 7 they were by tale, and they pitched all round about the cooking fire of Sigurd, and sent their song speech out, but not he knoweth its wisdom, or the word that they would speak, and hot grew the heart of Fafnir and sang amid the reek. Then Sigurd looked on Rajan, and he deemed it over long, that he died at the dear-bought morsel, and the might for the master of wrong. So he reacheth his hand to the roast to see if the cooking be o'er. But the blood in the fat seeped from it and scalded his fingers sore, and he set his hand to his mouth to quench the fleshly smart, and he tasted the flesh of the serpent and the blood of Fafnir's heart. Then there came a change upon him, for the speech of fowl he knew, and wise in the ways of the beast kind as the dwarfs of old he grew. And he knitted his brows and hearkened, and wrath in his heart arose. For he felt the set of evil in a world of many foes. But the hills of the wrath he handled, and Rajan's heart he saw, and how that the foe of the gods the net of death would draw. And his bright eyes flashed and sparkled, and his mouth grew set and stern, as he hearkened the voice of the eagles, and their song began to learn. For the first cried out in the desert, Almighty Sigmund's son, how long wilt thou sit and tarry now the dear bought roast is done? And the second, Volsung, arise. For the horns blow up to the hall, and dyed are the purple hangings, and the king to the feasting should fall. And the third, how great is the feast if the eater eat aright, the heart of the wisdom of old and the afterworld's delight. And the fourth, yea, what of Rajan? Shall he scatter wrack o'er the world? Shall the father be slain by the son, and the brother Cain's brother be hurled? And the fifth, he hath taught a stripling the gift of a god to give. He hath reared up a king for the slain, that he alone might live. And the sixth, he shall waken mighty as a god that scorneth the truth. He hath drunk of the blood of the serpent, and drowned all hope and ruse. And the seventh, arise, O Sigurd, lest the hour be overlate. For the sun in the mid-noon shineth, and swift is the hand of fate, arise. Let the world run backward and the blind heart have its will, and once again be tangled asunder good and ill. Lest love and hatred perish, let the world forget its tale, and the gods sit deepless, dreaming, in the high-walled heavenly vale. Then swift ire set Sigurd, and the wrath in his hand is bare, and he looketh, and Rajan sleepeth, and his eyes wide open glare.
I have not seen
But
the
his
shoes.
lips smile false in his dreaming,
your
and his
shoes are
hand
not
is
in
on the sword.
closet. Wow.
For he dreams himself the master in the new world's fashioning lord. And his dream hath forgotten Sigurd, and the king's life lies in
I
the
lost your
pit.
shoes.
He is not. Death knelleth upon him, while the dwarfs in mastery sit.
Well, weren't
But
you
lo,
wearing your shoes
how the eyes
yesterday?
of Sigurd the heart of the god will behold, and great is Alfather Odin, and upperset the curse of the gold, and the brand's top bloometh to heaven from the ancient wondrous
I
root.
forgot to turn on my
The summer
overcharge
house
gas.
shone
I'm
on
sorry.
its blossoms, and Sigurd's wrath
Now
was
got a
fruit.
10-second
Dread then he
reload.
cried in the desert,
Waste.
God master,
Waste.
lo thy deed. Hast thou nursed my life for destruction, and my death
The
to
sewer
serve
savior,
thy
get
king?
back.
Hast
Stay
thou
away from
kept
me.
me here for the net and the
I'll
death
give
that
you
tame
one
things
warning.
die? Hast thou feared me overmuch, thou foe of the gods on high? Lest the sword thine hand was wielding should turn about and cleave the tangled web of nothing thou hadst wearied thyself to weave. Lo here the sword and the stroke, judged in norns betwixt us twain. But for me, I will live and die
Let's roll
not,
the
nor
inside
shall
of
all
the
my
shoe-
hope
the
be
shoe
vain.
not being
Then a
shoes-
second
shoes-
stroke
shoes are
struck
probably
Sigurd,
sitting right
for the
there.
wrath flashed crimson, white, and twixt head and trunk of rage and fierce ran the faithful knight. And
It's
there
like-
lay
so
brother
they're
by
looking
brother,
for something
fading
in the
thing and
refrigerator.
well.
It's like right in
But
the
Sigurd
very
cried in the
front
desert, so far have I wandered on.
of everything.
Dead are the foes of God home that would blend the
Where
good
is
and
it?
the
Oh
ill.
my god.
And the world shall yet be famous, and the gods shall have their will. Nor shall I be dead and forgotten, while the earth grows
Well,
worse
take a look at the
and
first.
worse. With a blind heart came o'er the people, and binding curse with curse. How Sigurd took to win the treasure of the elf Einvari.
I just
Now
wanted to hit
Sigurd eat to the
suicide.
heart that once in the dwarf king lay, the
Don't
ward
worry,
of
that's
the
it.
wisdom begrudged, the might of the earlier day.
Oh, no,
Then
I can't
wise
find
of heart
it.
was he waxing, but longing in him grew, to sow the seed he had gotten,
You can always
and till the
count on
fields he
you when
knew.
the chips are
So
down.
he leapeth the back of grateful, and readeth the desert there, and the hollow slot of Fafnir, that led to the serpent's lair. Then long he rode down it, and the urns flew overhead, and tidings great and glorious, of that treasure of old they said. So far o'er the waste he wended, and when the night was come, he saw the earth's old dwelling, the dread gold wallower's home, on the skirts of a heath that was builded by a tumbled stony bent. High went that house to the heavens, down beneath the earth it went. Of unrued iron fashion for the heart of a greedy king, 'twas a mountain, blind without, and within was its plenishing, but the hoard of Andvari the ancient, and the sleeping hearse unseen, the gold of the gods that spared not and the greedy that have been. Through the door strode Sigurd the Volsung, and the grey moon in the sword, felling on the tawny gold heaps of the ancient hapless horde, gold gear of hosts unburied, and the coin of cities dead, great spoil of the ages of battle, lay there on the serpent's bed, huge blocks from mid-earth void, where none but the dwarves have mined. Wide sands of the golden rivers no foot of man may find, lay neath the spoils of the mighty and the ruddy rings of yore, but amidst was the helm of Oin that the fear of earth folk bore, and there gleamed a wonder beside it, the hauberk all of gold, whose like is not in the heavens nor has earth of its fellow told. There Sigurd seeth moreover and far his spring of gain, the hope of Loki's finger, the ransom's utmost grain. For it shone on the midmost gold heap like the first star set in the sky, in the yellow space of even when moonlight streweth an eye. Then laughed the son of Sigmund, and stooped to the golden land, and gathered that first of the harvest and set it on his hand. And he did on the helm of Oin, and the hauberk all of gold, whose like is not in the heavens nor has earth of its fellow told. Then he praised the day the Volsungs amid the yellow light, and he set his hand to the labor and put forth his kingly might. He dragged forth gold to the moon, on the desert's face he laid, the innermost earth's adornment, and rings for the nameless maid. He toiled and loaded grateful, and the cloudy war steed shone, and the gear of Sigurd rattled in the flooded moonlight when. There he toiled and loaded grateful, and the Volsung's armor rang, mid the yellow bed of the serpent, but without the eagle sang. By the red rings, O Sigurd, let the gold shine free and clear. For what hath the son of the Volsungs the ancient curse to fear? By the red rings, O Sigurd, for thy tale is well begun, and the world shall be good and gladdened by the gold lit up by the sun. By the red rings, O Sigurd, and gladden all thy heart, for the world shall make thee merry ere thou and she depart. By the red rings, O Sigurd, for the ways go green below, go green to the dwelling of kings, and the halls that the queen folk know. By the red rings, O Sigurd, for what is there by the way, save the joy of folk to awaken, and the dawn of the merry day? By the red rings, O Sigurd, for the strife awaits thy hand, and a plenteous warfield's reaping, and the praise of many a land. By the red rings, O Sigurd, but how shall a storehouse hold that glory of thy winning and the tidings to be told? Now the moon was dead, and the star worlds were great on the heavenly plain, when the steed was fully laden. Then Sigurd taketh the rein, and turns to the ruined rock wall that the lair was built beneath, for there he deemed was the gate and the door of the glittering heath, but not a whit moved grateful for aught that the king might do. Then Sigurd pondered a while, till the heart of the beast he knew, and clad in all his war gear he leaped to the saddle's stead, and with pride and mirth made grateful and tossed aloft his head, and sprang one spurt o'er the waste, and light and swift he went, and breasted the broken rampart, the stony tumble bend. And over the brow he clomb, and there beyond was the world, a place of many mountains and great crags together hurled. So down to the west he wended, and goes swift and light, and the stars are beginning to wane, and the day is mingled with night. For full fain was the sun to arise and look on the gold set free, and the dwarf wrought rings of the treasure in the gifts from the floor of the sea. How Sigurd awoke Brynhild upon in full. By long roads threaded Sigurd amidst the world of stone, and somewhat south he turneth. For he would not be alone, but longs for the dwellings of menfolk, and the kingly peoples, speech, and the days of the glee and the joyance, where men laugh each to each. But still the desert endureth, and a form must grateful fare, from the wrath of the glittering heath, and Fafnir's golden lair. Long Sigurd readeth the waste, when, lo, on a morning of day, from out of the tangled crag walls, amidst the cloud land grey, comes up a mighty mountain, and it is as though there burns a torch amidst of its cloud wreath. So thither Sigurd turns, for he deems indeed from its topmost to look on the best of the earth. And grateful mid beneath him, and his heart is full of mirth. So he readeth higher and higher, and the light grows great and strange, and forth from the clouds it flickers, till at noon they gather in change, and settle thick on the mountain, and hide its head from sight. But the winds in a while are wakened, and day bettereth ere the night, and, lifted a measureless mass o'er the desert crag walls high, cloudless the mountain reseth against the sunset sky, the sea of the sun grown golden, as it ebbs from the day's desire. and the light that afar was a torch's glowing river of fire, and the mountain is black above it, and below is it dark and dun. And there is the head of Ingful as an island in the sun. Night falls, but yet rides Sigurd, and hath no thought of rest, for he longs to climb that rock world and behold the earth at its best. But now with the maze of the foothills he sees the light no more, and the stars are lovely and gleaming on the lightless heavenly floor. So up and up he wendeth till the night is wearing thin. And he readeth the rift of the mountain, and all is dark therein, till the stars are dimmed by dawning and the wakening world is cold. Then afar in the upper rock wall a breach doth he behold, and a flood of light poured inward the doubtful dawning blinds. So swift he readeth thither, and the mouth of the breach he finds, and sitteth awhile ungrateful on the marvellous thing to gaze. For lo, this side of Ingful enwrapped by the fervent blaze, and not twixt earth and heaven save a world of flickering flame, and a hurrying shifting tangle, where the dark rents went and came. Great girl with the heart of Sigurd with uttermost desire, and he cried kind to grateful, and they hasten up, and mire, till he draweth rein in the dawning on the face of Ingful's steep. But who shall meet the dawning where the tongues of that wildfire leap? For they weave a wavering wall, that driveth over the heaven, the wind that is born within it. Nor ever aside is it driven, but a mightiest wind of the waste, and the rain flood amidst it is not. And no wayfarer storing no window the hand of its builder hath wrought, but there on his divine sun smiling as its breath uplifted its hair, and his eyes shine bright with its image, and his mail gleams white and fair, and his forehead pictures the heavens and the waning stars behind, but his neck is grateful stretching to snuff at the flame all blind. And his cloudy flank upheaveth, and tinkleth the knitted mail, and the gold of the uttermost waters is waxen wan and pale. Now Sigurd turns in his saddle, and the hilt of the raft he shifts, and draws the girth tighter. Then the gathered reins he lifts, and cried aloud to grateful, and rides at the wildfire's heart. But the white wall wavers before him, and the flame flood rush it apart, and high o'er his head it reset, and wide and wild is its roar, as it bears the mighty tidings to the very heavenly floor. But he readeth through its roaring as the warrior rides the ride, when it bows with the wind of the summer, and the hood spears draw a knife. The white flame licks his raiment and sweeps through Grateful's mane, and bathes both hands of Sigurd and the hilt of Fafnir's bane, and winds about his war helm and mingles with his hair, but not his raiment dusketh or dims his glittering gear. Then it fails and fades and darkens till all seems left behind, and dawn and the blaze is swallowed in mid-murk stark and blind. But forth a little further and a little further on, and all is calm about him, and he sees the scorched earth when, beneath a glimmering twilight, and he turns his conquering eyes, and a ring of pale slaked ashes on the side of Ingful lies. And the world of the waste is beyond it, and all is hushed and grey, and the new risen moon is a paling, and the stars grow faint with day. Then Sigurd looked before him, and the shield burg there he saw, a wall with the tiles of Odin rock clear without a flaw, the gold by the silver gleaming, and the ruddy by the white. And the blazonings of their glory were done upon them bright, as of dear things wrought for the warlords new come to Odin's hall. Piled high aloft to the heavens uprose that battle wall, and far o'er the topmost shield rim for a banner of fame there hung, a glorious golden buckler. And against the staff it rang, as the earliest wind of dawning uprose on Ingful's face, and the light from the yellowing east beamed soft on the shielded place. But the wrath cried out in answer as Sigurd looked her down, to the wasted soil of the desert by that rampart of renown. He looked but little beneath it, and the dwelling of God it seemed, as against its gleaming suns the eager Sigurd leaned. He draweth not sword from scabbard, as the wall he wendeth around, and it is but the wind and Sigurd that walk kenneth any sound. But, lo, to the gate he cometh, and the doors are open wide, and no order the way withstandeth, and no earls by the threshold abide, so he stands awhile and marvels. Then the baleful light of the wrath gleams bare in his ready hand as he wendeth the inward path, for he dovetailed some guile of the gods, or perch in some dwarf king's snare, or a mock of the giant people that shall fade in the morning air, but he getteth him in Angazith. And a wall.
Alright, that's it for this morning. We'll try to do better next time. Man, I don't know. What's it do about it? Well, you know, my wife had a fit about chicken guts. There's some chicken guts in the refrigerator, and I threw them away, and she was really upset, so I didn't get to sleep. Gotta work on that. Indifference. So, you leave them in there and you spoil and she gets upset. Throw them away and she gets upset. Can't win. It's that time. Alright. Take care.